You might see it on their elbows, sometimes their forehead, and these are all kind of bony places where they fall and they hit themselves or they run into the coffee table or something like that. But more suspicious areas are soft tissue areas. If you see injury in cheeks, the eyes, the underside of the arms, the abdomen, the thighs, those are places where it's not to say that they can't do that while they're playing, but it certainly raises the level of suspicion. And I would also say that in terms of physical abuse, anytime you have an injury that looks like it's a pattern of some sort,
right?
You know, it's not uncommon for children to be hit with a belt, and a belt leaves a very telltale linear mark for a child. Children who have been burned with cigarettes have very telltale circular marks on them. So any injury that has a pattern raises the suspicion level, not to say that it is absolutely abuse, but it warrants somebody looking into it to try to determine what's going on.
And how would people get in touch with you if they do suspect someone who's...
So the first thing to do is to call the 800 number in Albany, and that's 1-800-342-3720. You may call your local district, but they can't take that report for you. So you can call Broome County. If you're living in Tompkins, you can call Tompkins County. You can tell them, I think this child is being abused. And it's a good heads up for us, but the report has to go to Albany. It's a clearinghouse, and Albany tracks those reports to make sure that we're doing everything we need to be doing.
Now, there are other ways that a community can act together in order to help prevent childhood abuse. In what ways does our community work together to do that?
Well, I will tell you that I have been privileged to work in this field, in this community for over 30 years. And I've also had the privilege of touring around the country and speaking in other communities that are looking to emulate what we have here. Mm-hmm. So we have been forerunners in making sure that the community looks at abuse and maltreatment of children. We're not going to be able to deal with this if we say it's a social service problem.
Right.
Child Protective has to fix it. We have to look at it as a systemic community thing. We are very dependent at social services on the eyes and ears in the community, the family members, the neighbors, the friends, the teachers, law enforcement, people that have regular contact with these children and these families that know something's amiss, something's different now.
Right.
And we're dependent on them reaching out. The other thing I would say is, children under the age of 5, and particularly under the age of 3, are at much higher risk of abuse and maltreatment. And those children are often nonverbal. So I can send a caseworker to a house, but if they're interviewing a parent and a 3-year-old, without that information coming from somebody else that knows the family, we're not going to be able to get very far.
Right.
So it starts at that front line. But then we have lots of other people in the community. Sometimes kids are getting occupational therapy, speech therapy. They're having regular doctor visits for health issues. Those are all people that have eyes and ears on these children, and we're so dependent on their knowledge of the family. So from there, then we would get the hotline report, and that allows us to try to intervene. We can access family court if we need to do that. Sometimes laws have been broken, and criminal court, New York State is a bi-court system. It's criminal court and family court.
Right.
And so we might use those two court systems, but we also might just be able to say to the family, it seems like you're having a hard time. What do you want to do?
Right.
How can we help you be the parent that you want to be? And there are lots of services in the community that we can hook people up with. But it is this group community effort. It is not just something we can do on our own.
Right. And I know that we've participated on the Family Violence Prevention Council, and that seems to be one of the places where those connections between agencies that actually occurs. So can you tell me a little bit about the Family Violence Prevention Council?
Absolutely. Yeah, I'm a big fan, supporter of the Family Violence Council. It started over 30 years ago, kind of out of a tragedy in this community. There was a little girl who died in the community of horrific, horrific child abuse. She was not school age yet, 4 years old. And it turned out that a lot of people in the community knew a little bit about her life. The doctor's office knew a little bit about her.
Right.
Law enforcement knew a little bit about her. The school district knew a little bit about her through her older siblings. Neighbors knew a little bit about her. But nobody was talking. Nobody was bringing all those pieces of the puzzle together. And she literally slipped through the cracks and had this horrific death. Yeah. And fortunately, at the time, we had fantastic leadership at the Department of Social Services, with the district attorney's office, with law enforcement, who said this is a community problem. And as a community, we can't ever allow this to happen again.
Right.
And so the council was formed, and it has a large group where we have members from law enforcement, treatment teams, the schools, clergy, the hospitals sit on it. And we try to, first of all, forge those relationships and keep that communication going. But then we also have smaller groups that branch out and talk about professional education and community education and how do we keep building our relationships and keeping them strong. 30 years is a long time to be successful at this, and it's because we keep working at it.
And this is one of the ways our community really does help prevent childhood abuse, is by participating with each other on the Family Violence Prevention Council.
Yes.
Julia Hepworth, it has been a pleasure having you on Encounter.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
It was great having you. And I want you all to have a blessed day. Be gentle with yourselves.